channel, or welcome back. This is Nat from Nat's Narrative, and I am going to be giving you guys some book recommendations for the spooky season. So I am currently in the process of filming a bit of a reset, like a seasonal reset, getting ready for this season, and I wanted to give you guys some book recommendations. However, after I finished filming that part of the video, I realized that it needed to be its own separate video. Anyway, I've got some of the books here with me, but some of the other books I either read as ebooks or I listened to the audiobooks, but I'm going to have pictures here around the screen to make sure that you guys can see the covers at all times. Without much further ado, let's get started. The first book I want to recommend is House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin A. Craig. I've read 2 books by her so far, and I have to say she has become one of my favorite authors in the past couple of years. The way that she writes is just so atmospheric, and she has this way of making you feel like all of the creepy, horrific things that the main character is experiencing, you're experiencing that too. And as they begin to doubt their sanity and begin to doubt the things that they're seeing, you're also doubting yourself and second guessing like everything you know. Even though you know it's a book, in that moment it doesn't feel like you're reading, it feels like you're losing your mind. In A Manor by the Sea, 12 sisters are cursed. Once they were 12, but loneliness fills the grand house now that 4 of the girls' lives have been cut short. The book is actually a retelling of the tale of the 12 dancing princesses, but by the point that the book starts, 4 of them, the eldest 4 of the sisters, have already died. They all die in incredibly tragic ways. The first one gets the plague and inevitably dies. The second one falls to her death. I'm not gonna say how exactly, but she has a very bad fall, and she dies. The third one drowns, and the fourth one accidentally falls off a cliff, right? So the main character, her name is Annalie, and she is actually starting to get these weird visions, but she starts to get suspicious that the deaths of her sisters were not accidents at all, even though it sounds weird right now because some of them really do sound like accidents, but bear with me, okay? If you aren't hooked on this idea yet, just wait, okay? So I said this was a retelling of the 12 dancing princesses. The dancing part comes here. So Annalie and her sisters are sneaking around and leaving their home and somehow showing up in the other side of the world and attending these beautiful, lavish balls and dancing the night away with handsome strangers. The setting for the book is absolutely beautiful. We have this gothic mansion by the seaside where like everything, you know, it's dreary and everything is dark, but at the same time you have all of this luxury. This one is a YA, and it does have a little bit of romance in it. It's not like the main plot, but you know, it's there. The next book on the list is the one that I finished today, so I'm very excited to talk about this one. But yeah, this is All the Dead Lie Down by Kiri Macaulay. I'm gonna have it here on the screen, but this was marketed as The Haunting of Bly Manor meets House of Salt and Sorrow. This is a contemporary YA gothic romance about a dark family lineage, the ghost of grief, and the lines will cross for love. The main character in this story is called Marin, and she has just been orphaned. She is left with no family and nowhere to go when she gets an email from her mom's estranged childhood best friend. This woman is Alice Lovelace, and she lives in this seaside mansion, right, in Maine. She's inviting Marin to come live with her and work for her as a nanny, taking care of her 2 youngest daughters while she's writing her new novel. The kids are creepy, okay? That's the girls are very creepy. Mia is the youngest one, and she is the nicer one, but she also has this quirk of having funerals for her dolls and actually burying them like on the ground in like this old cemetery that is in their family's property. Like I said, She's the nicest one. But then there's Ren, and she's technically the middle sister, right? And she just hates Marin upon meeting her, and she doesn't want her there. So she's playing these horrible pranks that lean more on the side of hazing, really, to try and drive Marin away from the state and from the manor. Even after Marin gets there, the oldest daughter of Alice comes back from boarding school. Her name is Evie, and she's even stranger than her younger sisters. So I'll not say much more about that. But yeah, basically Marin is constantly filled with this anxiety that something horrible is going to happen, and she finds dead animals in her room and throughout the property. They've been killed by something or someone, and she really doesn't know who. Like I said, I absolutely devoured this book. I loved it so much. I listened to it in less than 24 hours, and I 100% recommend it for this spooky season. The other book by Erin A. Craig that I want to recommend is Small Favors. This is also incredibly atmospheric and just so creepy. Goodreads says, Ellery Downing lives in the quiet town of Amity Falls in the Black Spire mountain range, bordered by a nearly impenetrable forest from which the early townsfolk fought off the devils in the woods. So in the book, the monsters are supposedly gone, and they've been for some generations. However, at the beginning of the book, there is an incident in which there was a supply run making their way to the city through the woods, but something happens, and the only one to come back is this very scared and injured horse, which belonged to one of the men. So a search party is sent out to the woods, and they also all die, or most of them die. The book is told in a very interesting way. The story spans an entire year. As the seasons progress, there are different incidents that happened that have people becoming very anxious, and they stop trusting their own neighbors. Fingers are pointed, and everybody's kind of losing control. This book took me for a ride. I had a lot of theories as to what way it was gonna go, and I was wrong on so many of them, and I am glad that I was wrong, because my imagination couldn't come up with the ending of this book. It was so good and so scary. This one is also YA, and there is also a bit of a romance in there. Again, it doesn't drive the plot, but there's a romance in there that I found very cute. Next up on the list, we have House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. This one is so disturbing, and it's filled with these disgusting images that I honestly couldn't get out of my head for weeks afterwards, but in the best way. Like, I was obsessed with this book. It just haunted me afterwards. Something happened to her and her two older sisters when they were children. Something they can't quite remember, but that left each of them with an identical half-moon scar at the base of their throats. The girls and their parents are up in Scotland, I believe, and they're walking past this house that burned down. And the parents are just like, I think, a little bit behind them, and the girls are just walking. They're there 1 second, and the next second they're gone, right? They're missing for quite a while. I think they're missing for like a month or something like that, when they suddenly appear in the same spot. And there's clearly been changes to them, not just in personality, but physically. There's been changes. So the story is told by the point of view of the youngest sister. Her name is Iris, and when the story starts, she realizes or finds out that her eldest sister, Gray, has gone missing under very suspicious circumstances. Iris learns just how weird her life can get. Horned men start shadowing her. A corpse falls out of her sister's ceiling, and ugly, impossible memories start to twist their way to the forefront of her mind. So Iris and the middle sister, I'm forgetting her name right now, I'm sorry, but they get together and they realize that the only way to find out what happened to Gray and where she is to remember what happened to them when they were gone. This book is so twisted in such a good way, and I really hope that I get the chance to have a reread this season. Now, if you're looking for something that's more heavy on the romance, I would really recommend the Belladonna trilogy by Adeline Grace. So this one is a new adult gothic romance, and again, this one is more heavy on the romance. There is a plot, there's a little bit of mystery in there, but heavy on the romance. The romance also happens to be with death, like the personification of death. Orphaned as a baby, 19-year-old Signa has been raised by a string of guardians, each one more interested in her wealth than her well-being, and each has met an untimely end. She has to move to Thorngrove, which is the estate of her last living relatives, which are the Hawthorns. Signa's mother's twin sister. This is her family. She married into the Hawthorns and she had 2 children. She has recently died from a mysterious illness that now is plaguing her daughter. So Signa shows up here and she quickly is visited by the ghost of her aunt, and it becomes clear to her that her aunt didn't just die from this mysterious illness, she was poisoned. And that means that Blythe, her cousin, who is supposedly also sick with the same illness, is currently being poisoned. So Signa kind of decides to work alongside Death to discover who it is that is poisoning her cousin. This is a trilogy. The first book is told exclusively from the point of view of Signa, but the second book has both Signa's and Blythe's POV, and then the third book is told exclusively from Blythe's POV. So yeah, I recommend these books if you're looking for something that is more heavy on the romance, but that still has some fantasy and some gothicness to it. The next book that I'm going to be recommending is The Last of the Moon Girls by Barbara Davis. This book, if I had to describe it in a sentence, I would say it is a cozy witch murder mystery. Lizzie Moon never wanted Moon Girl form. 8 years ago, she left the land that 9 generations of gifted healers had tended, determined to distance herself from the whispers about her family's strange legacy. The powers that they have, when I mean cozy nature witch, is really what you're hearing. So Lizzie's own abilities have to do with the smell of people. She can kind of smell auras, really, feelings and emotions, and also kind of like intentions. So she uses that ability to make perfumes that are perfectly tailored for the person. When the book starts, Lizzie finds out that her grandmother has passed away, and so she has to go back to Moon Girl Farms after many years of being gone to kind of get her affairs in order. While she's there, she faces a lot of judgment from people in town because their family is not liked at all. In fact, they're hated because a few years ago, the bodies of 2 teenage girls were found in the property, in the pond. Althea Moon, Lizzie's grandmother, was the main suspect, but there was never enough proof to charge her with anything. But public opinion charged her with the crime anyway. While she's there, she decides to exonerate her grandmother and actually investigate what happened to those girls and who killed them, so that she can kind of give that peace to her grandmother even after death. I personally really enjoy this book, and it felt like something I really needed at the time that I read it, because I lost my grandmother last year and I wasn't able to say goodbye, and I was also kind of distanced from her, not just in actual physical distance, but emotionally we hadn't been as close as we'd been when I was growing up. So this book hit me so hard, but also it felt very healing in a way. Next up, we have Juniper Thorn by Ava Reed. This is a gothic horror retelling of the Juniper 3. I'm not familiar with that tale, but this was really good. really good and creepy and disturbing, which is perfect for the season. Marlinchen spends her days divining secrets in exchange for rubles and trying to placate her tyrannical, xenophobic father who keeps his daughter sequestered from the outside world. But at night, Marlinchen and her sisters sneak out to enjoy the city's amenities and revel in its thrills. Specifically, they go to the ballet, where Marlinchen kind of falls in love with one of the dancers. While Oblia flourishes with culture and bustles with enterprise, a monster lurks in its midst, born of intolerance and resentment and suffused with old world power. Caught between history and progress and blood and desire, Marlinchen must draw upon her own magic to keep her city safe and find her place within it. I really enjoyed this book. Like I said, it's very disturbing. There's a lot of images in it that are very creepy, but the most disturbing parts of it are because of the themes in this. I would advise you to seek out the trigger warnings in this because it could be very heavy for some people. The last book I'm going to be recommending to you guys is going to be Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. So far there's 2 books out, but I'm not sure if there's going to be more to this series or not. Galaxy Alex Stern is the most unlikely member of Yale's freshman class. Raised in the Los Angeles hinterlands by a hippie mom, Alex dropped out of school early and into a world of shady drug dealer boyfriends, dead-end jobs, and much, much worse. By age 20, in fact, she is the sole survivor of a horrific, unsolved, multiple homicide. So, Alex, she can see ghosts, but the worst part is that they can see her, or at least they notice that she can see them, and because not many people can see them, they are very attracted to her, and not all of them have the best intentions. Alex arrives in New Haven, tasked by her mysterious benefactors with monitoring the activities of Yale's secret societies. So basically, there are secret societies in Yale, right? She is tasked with kind of being there for all of the rituals to make sure that they aren't interrupted by any entities. This one has been described as a dark academia. I wouldn't say there's a lot of academics going on. The setting is very dark academia, so it's at a college town, right? It's in New Haven, it's in Yale. It happens during the fall semester, so it's fall and then there's like winter. She doesn't really go to school, to like classes. She's supposed to, but she doesn't really go to classes. Like I said, she's not a very academically inclined. There is a lot of darkness though. It is very dark. I would also recommend you check out the trigger warnings for this, because there are some heavy scenes that personally left me quite disturbed. So go do that before you read this, but I do highly recommend this book. Anyway guys, these were my book recommendations for the spooky season. I hope you guys enjoy them and I hope you guys decide to read some of them. My TBR list for this season is pretty full at this point, but I am still very happy to receive any recommendations from you guys. So if you have any, please leave them down below in the comments. I'm also on Bookstagram as Nat's Narrative. I am very active in there, so if you want to have a chat with me about any of these books, please feel free to send me a DM. Anyway, thanks for watching this video and I'll see you guys later.